Martin, it's snowing outside, so I hope you're keeping warm inside.
Is it snowing where you are?
Yeah, a
Seriously?
little bit. Yeah.
All
Flakes
right.
coming down.
Oh, it's sunny here. It's bright and sunny.
But all this kind of like shiny whiteness makes me think of our reading for this weekend, which is the Transfiguration.
That was a segue I wasn't expecting. I thought you could say Christmas.
So what do you make of this story in Mark chapter 9, verses 2 to 9?
So this is the Sunday before Lent. So it's kind of getting us into, it's giving us a bit of a boost to get into Lent, isn't it? Yeah. And I just wanted to comment on the fact there are two sermons I've heard on the Transfiguration passage in my life that I remember vividly. The first must be back in the late 1980s. Desmond, when I was working in New York at Trinity Wall Street, and Desmond Tutu preached on the Feast of the Transfiguration, which was a weekday on this passage. And what I remember is that it wasn't so much what he said. His message was basically Jesus's transfiguration is a sign of our transfiguration. And we see our image in Jesus. And but it was how he just held his arms up and just declared it. And it was in that moment you kind of saw, he was the sermon. That was one. The other one specifically relates to this Sunday, because what we've got on Sunday, and this is, unusual coincidence, we have the Gospel Transfiguration, the Sunday before Lent, and Valentine's Day. And so I remember a sermon by Geoffrey Howard. Geoffrey Howard was retired priest, still is, serving in St. James Wolfston Way in Cambridge, where Jutta my wife was the vicar. And Geoffrey would preach about monthly. He was, and I'm saying this knowing that I've only heard you preach occasionally, Mike. He was consistently the best preacher I've ever heard. It was absolutely startling. And as a parish priest preacher, it was just amazing. Anyway, for this Sunday, he starts out by talking about, and I remember the sermon, he started by talking about, how do you know when people are in love? Well, and then he described various experiences of watching friends of his fall in love and so forth, and how they look different and how they glow and how they kind of got a shine to their face and so forth, and their appearance changes. And then, of course, they want to hold on to the experience. They want to just, hold on to that moment of being in love. And then just very gently eases into, and Jesus' appearance is changed. He's glowing, he's dazzling white. And of course, his father says, my beloved. And you get this amazing sense of this is an incredible picture of God's love, just flowing over and over, the Father to the Son. And of course, Peter wants to hold on to the moment because so let's stay here, let's build some tents, and let's stay here, let's cling on to this amazing moment. But in that image, you get a sense of the power of God's love, which of course then is what the cross is all about. And then we listen to that and say, well, we're in Christ, and the same word is uttered to us. And we will be transfigured too. So it was just a beautiful way of combining the two themes, and I just, for me, that just stayed with me as an image and as something that sustains how we, what we are then going through as we go through Lent. It is that destination of the total revelation of God's love in the cross and the resurrection. into which we are caught up.
Mm. Yeah, no, powerful images, aren't they? And something there about, how important it can be in a sermon that there's something kind of not only illustrative, but physically embodied about it that can be really important, going back to the tutu example. Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking about this in relation to our last week's discussion, John chapter 1, and we were talking there about how this was the summary of the gospel, the beginning of John's gospel. And it may not at first sight seem to fit with this week's reading about the Transfiguration, because one of the things you notice about John's gospel is he misses out key events in Jesus' life that are in the other gospels. So there's no Transfiguration in John's gospel. There's no Christmas in John's gospel. There's no communion service, if you like, as such.
Yeah. And there's no baptism except an allusion to a baptism.
So you haven't got all of these things. And if there's one theme that comes through from the Transfiguration story you have in Mark, it's the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ that bowls over the disciples. And you see in those Greek and Russian icons, the disciples kind of rolling down the hill because they're so kind of like gobsmacked by the glory that's being revealed to them. So, and if you ask the question, well, why hasn't John got that kind of like, the revelation of the glory of God in Jesus Christ in those moments? The answer that scholars tend to give is because the whole gospel is about the glory of God in Jesus Christ. And it's being revealed in and through all sorts of things that are going on and doesn't need to be distilled in that particular location. But there's something peculiarly important, I think, about the Gospels, the Gospel of Mark, in actually drawing attention to it, because it's saying something about the nature of God's glory. You see it in the person of Jesus Christ, in the person of a human creature, which actually says that here there is the possibility, and in Jesus, the actuality of God being fully present in and through God's created order, in and through this human being. Yeah. And what this bespeaks is also the openness of creation to the Creator. And it's something that we often forget. We often come up with a philosophical conundrum. You can't be both a human being and be God. It's like trying to be a square and a circle. But what events like the Transfiguration show is that that's a category mistake. They aren't two shapes that are different. They're two qualitatively different things that we see in Jesus can come together. And that actually in different ways, the created order is designed to be open to the divine. And actually, our glory and the glory of God is found precisely in that being open and being receptive and being hospitable to the divine. So there's something, echoing really what Desmond Tutu was saying here, that the Transfiguration is the revelation of creation's openness to the divine in the human person, which is the promise of that potential union for us in God too.
I suppose I'm just thinking about that in relation to John, because John also locates the glory in the cross.
Well, I was going to come to that next because...
right, sorry, I just...
But good, yeah, absolutely.
Carry on then, I won't interrupt anymore.
Well, I was going to say, if you look at the Orthodox icons, right, you've got Peter, John and James, haven't you, in the icons very regularly of the Transfiguration, and precisely the same people appear at the foot of the cross. Not that they all are necessarily there, but the point of the iconographers in making this is the glory of God is revealed in both places, and God doesn't stop being God and being manifest as God in the midst of suffering and death. Yeah. And that there is something about the fact that the Transfiguration is located just before Lent as we get into the way of the cross, and is located in Mark's gospel just before Jesus turns his face towards Jerusalem, which is clearly highly significant in terms of the shaping of the gospel. That this may be a light and a glory that is hidden from human view because of our ways of seeing and understanding, but it is a glory that continues to be present.
And of course, in the story of the Transfiguration, they have to be taken apart, taken away up the mountain in order to see this glimpse, this anticipation of what will be revealed on the cross and in the resurrection. And then they go back down, and there's that struggle about why can't we heal this person? So you've got so there is a real sense that this is a very, not, I won't say private, but there is something very particular about this moment of revelation for those three disciples.
Yeah. And this isn't a glory that kind of protects us from the suffering that is coming, but it is a glory that can absorb it and transfigure it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.